You wake up in the middle of the night. Your eyes are open. The room looks exactly the same as it always does. The door, the dresser, the faint outline of the hallway light underneath the crack in the door. You try to move. Nothing happens. You try again. Still nothing. And then you notice him, standing near the corner of the room. Tall, still, completely black, wearing what looks like a wide-brimmed hat. He doesn't move. He doesn't speak. He just watches. Tonight, on the Midnight Drive, we're talking about the Hat Man. See, there's a pattern in sleep paralysis stories. People describe pressure on their chest, a weight, an inability to scream, some kind of presence. But one version shows up again and again, a tall shadow with a hat. The account usually goes something like this. Someone wakes up in the early hours of the morning. They're aware. The room is visible. They know that they're not dreaming. But they can't move. Their arms won't respond. Their legs won't respond. Even their breathing feels shallow, like something is pressing down on their chest. And then they see him, standing in the doorway, or at the foot of the bed, sometimes near the closet. Always still. Always watching. The shape is human, but darker than the room around it. Not transparent, not smoky, but solid black, like a cutout of a man wearing an old-fashioned fedora or a wide-brimmed hat, like a gardening hat. Some say he leans against the wall. Some say he tilts his head slightly. Some say he slowly moves closer, and almost everyone describes the same emotion. Not confusion, not curiosity, but absolute dread. An overwhelming sense that this thing does not belong there, that it knows they're awake, that it's aware of them. Eventually, the paralysis breaks. The figure vanishes, seemingly instantly, not fading, not walking away, just gone. And the person is left sitting upright in their bed, heart racing, trying to convince themselves they were still dreaming. But here's where it gets interesting. The Hat Man isn't just one person's story. It's thousands of people's story. People who have never met, who don't share culture, geography, or belief systems. And yet, the description is eerily consistent. Tall, shadowed, wide-brimmed hat, completely silent, and always watching. So what's happening here exactly? Sleep paralysis occurs when the brain wakes up before the body exits REM sleep. During REM sleep, your muscles are essentially turned off. It's a protective mechanism so you don't physically act out your dreams. But sometimes the switch misfires. Your awareness turns on, but your body doesn't. You're conscious, but you're paralyzed. And here's the critical part. Parts of your brain are still in dream mode. Your threat detection systems are completely active. Your visual cortex is unstable. Your sense of presence, that part of your brain that helps you map other people in the space that you are occupying, it can generate a hallucinated intruder. When the brain senses vulnerability, it looks for a threat. In the dark, with limited sensory input, it fills in the blanks, and it tends to fill them in with a human-shaped figure. Why the hat, though? Why the hat? That's less clear. That is way less clear. Some researchers suggest that the brain simplifies shapes when it's under stress. A head plus shadow might become a brim. A coat rack becomes a silhouette. The mind completes the image. Others argue that it may be cultural reinforcement. Once the archetype exists online, it spreads. But here's the unsettling part. Accounts of a shadow man with a hat predate internet forums. Similar figures appear in older folklore. Shadow watchers, night visitors, the man in black. And we're not talking about Johnny Cash here. Different names, same outline. And that's where it becomes less about ghosts and more about something deeper. There's something profoundly human about the fear of being watched while unable to move. It taps into vulnerability, loss of control, exposure. The Hat Man might not be a visitor. He might be the shape that your brain gives to generalized helplessness. Because when you wake up and can't move, and your body feels trapped, and your mind is trying to make sense of it all, it doesn't conjure randomness. It conjures a presence, a witness, a figure. And sometimes that figure wears a hat. You know the strangest part? The next time that it happens, you might expect him. And that expectation alone might be enough. When was the last time that you encountered the Hat Man? Was he wearing a hat? One of the last times that I encountered the Hat Man, he had glowing red eyes as well. This is another strange part about internet cultures. You can go and you can look up sleep paralysis stories. A lot of times people will refer to the Hat Man as a sleep paralysis demon. Other times, the sleep paralysis demon is sitting on your chest, and that's what's making it so difficult to breathe. But that feeling of dread is so consistent throughout all of these stories. Thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of stories about sleep paralysis. The one thing they all have in common is this feeling of complete dread. Have you experienced sleep paralysis? When was the last time that you experienced it? Maybe you never have experienced it. But if you have, I know I would love to hear from you. Consider reaching out to us at our line here at the Midnight Drive, 402-610-2836. Leave us a message. Tell us what your experience was like. If you've experienced it, you know that it's absolutely unforgettable. And if the concept of sleep paralysis comes up in conversation, you'll always have something to contribute. We'll continue our talk on sleep paralysis coming up on the Midnight Drive. When people talk about sleep paralysis, they usually describe something visual. A shadow, a person in the doorway, a shape at the foot of the bed. But sometimes there's nothing to see at all. Just sound. Just pressure. Just the unmistakable feeling that someone is in the room with you. One account describes waking up flat on their back. They can see the ceiling clearly. They can hear the faint hum of their air conditioner. They know that they're awake, but their body won't move. They try to lift a finger. Nothing. They try to swallow. Barely. And then they hear it. Breathing. Slow. Close. Right beside the bed. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It's just steady. Measured. As if someone is standing inches away. They tell themselves, it's just the house settling. It's the fan. It's my imagination. But the breathing continues. And then the mattress shifts. Just slightly. As if just the slightest bit of weight has been added to it. Not enough to dip the entire bed. No. Just enough to feel occupied. You're not alone. The air changes. You know that feeling when somebody stands just a little too close to you? When your body reacts before your brain does? That's what they describe. And the worst part isn't seeing something. It's not seeing anything. The room looks completely normal, but everything feels wrong. They try to scream. No sound. They try to roll over. Nothing's responding. The breathing gets closer. And then it stops instantly, like someone held it in. And then the paralysis breaks. The room, empty. No dents in the mattress, no open door, no shadow, just silence. Now, this version is a little harder to mythologize. There's no hat, there's no figure, there's no archetype, just a presence. And that presence is fascinating because the human brain has a very specific system dedicated to detecting other beings that are nearby. It's part of how we've survived over the years. If something is in the room with you, you want to know. Fast. In sleep paralysis, your motor system is completely offline. You can't move. Your body is vulnerable. And your threat detection system is hyperactive. When those systems misfire together, the brain can generate the sensation of another person. Not visually, but spatially. A felt presence, if you will. Researchers have even been able to induce this feeling in lab conditions by stimulating certain areas of the brain responsible for mapping your body in space. People report someone standing behind them, leaning over them, breathing near them, when no one is there. The brain, under stress, doesn't just imagine monsters. It imagines witnesses, intruders, observers. There's something primal about that. Being watched. Being unable to move. Being aware of something that may not be real, but feels entirely real. And what makes this version even more unsettling than the Hat Man is the complete absence of imagery. When you see a shadow, your brain can assign a shape. When you see a figure, you can name it. But when you simply feel something without seeing it, without seeing anything, your mind fills in the blanks in much darker ways. Some describe it as a demon, some as an alien, some a ghost. Some never tell anybody. Because how in the world do you explain, I woke up and felt someone breathing next to me? The experience leaves residue. Even after you understand the science. Even after you know it's REM intrusion. Even after you've read the explanations. Because the body remembers fear. And during sleep paralysis, fear isn't abstract. It's physical. The chest tightness, the adrenaline, the shallow breath, the stillness. That's what makes this phenomenon so powerful, so memorable. It lives at the border, not fully a dream, but not fully awake, not fully hallucination, not fully reality. And in that border space, the brain does what it always does. It searches for a threat. And if it doesn't find one, it creates one. Sometimes he wears a hat. Sometimes he doesn't appear at all. But the experiences are all the same. You wake up. You cannot move, and something is there, whether you see it or not. And then, when the paralysis finally breaks, the room is empty, but it doesn't feel empty. Not right away, at least. There's not always a Hat Man. It's not always a sleep paralysis demon. It's not always a little monster sitting on your chest. Some have described what's called an old hag. Some call the Hat Man the old hag. Again, it's your brain creating an intruder. For whatever reason, these tens of thousands of accounts, hundreds of thousands of accounts, of people experiencing sleep paralysis, they all see the same things. So, as I mentioned in the previous segment, if you've experienced sleep paralysis, if you've had an encounter with the Hat Man, or the old hag, or sleep paralysis demon, or perhaps you've just felt something, please consider reaching out to us and telling us about it on the Midnight Drive's line, 402-610-2836. We'll see you out there on the Midnight Drive.